Hello and welcome to this short video for Dropfleet Commander today. And in it, I thought I'd take the opportunity to address a question that has come up before in regard to my collection, and I think will probably come up again when people see my various bits of Dropfleet Commander content, and that is in relation to the bases that I use for these miniatures. Now, the miniatures themselves are supplied for the game with bases almost as those you see before you here, except they come with an interlocking set of plastic dials and stickers and pegs, which are used to, or manipulated to indicate the various statuses of the ships over the course of the game in relation to their orbital level, their energy signature and things like that. And then a peg which is moved around tiny holes in order to disclose how many hits they have remaining. Now that's quite a fiddly system, and as soon as I got the miniatures, I didn't really like it. I mean, I can see it working, but frankly, I just couldn't keep the pegs, to stay in the right place, to pick them up easily, and it requires fairly constant manipulation of the miniatures in play as well, which isn't easy. And so I elected to just use dice next to them, another means of marking it. And then I came across these. So as you can see before you here, these are laser cut plastic or acrylic counters. And they are made by Laserforge Miniatures. And so in the case of each of the ships, you can see the bases have been replaced. And so I'll use this frigate as our primary example. So if I remove this token here, that was basically supplied with an MDF insert that goes in the bottom and is glued in, and then this piece that is laid on top with cutouts in it that will then take the relevant tokens that go with the ship, and it also has cutouts for dice holders at the rear. And so you just pop the tokens in like that. The kit is supplied in the form of the cutout, the tokens, you get the dice, and then you get the various different coloured tokens that you see before you, and they come in packs of, I think, 4 for the capital ships and 8 for the escorts and frigates. And in each one, then you've got tokens that sum up exactly the same things as the original bases did for the game. So in this case, you've got the orbital layer ones. So black is for high orbit, grey is for low orbit, although I realise that probably looks quite white in this light. And then white is for in atmosphere, which is for the frigates primarily. And then in terms of the coloured tokens, these red and yellow ones are for the energy spike. So for a minor spike, it's yellow, and for a major spike, it's red. The translucent light blue token, that one is to depict a silent running. And then they have the exact same counterparts for the capital ships as well. And you get the tiny dice supplied to fill out the bases. Now, I appreciate that actually this in itself is a similarly fiddly mechanism to a certain extent as the one that existed before, but I do think it is actually slightly easier to use. Some of the tokens sometimes fit quite snugly, but most of the time they lift out very, very easily, and the same is true of the small dice at the back as well. So whereas before you were grasping the miniature and moving it around and wrestling to move the dial, to hit the peg out, this I find personally both a bit more straightforward, and it has the advantage of being quite immediately visible on the tabletop as well as to what the different statuses are when you use the plastic tokens that are supplied. So yeah, for me this works. It works better, I think, for me than the original system. I appreciate that it's still in some respects quite fiddly, and in the few games that I've had recently, sometimes if I'm just in a rush, I'll just put the dice next to it rather than trying to fiddle around putting them into the little holders. And the other issue, of course, is that the miniatures themselves can get in the way of manipulating that, especially when they've got protrusions such as this, or they overhang the front or back of the base, and you can knock them. So you still have to be careful, probably just grasp the base in one position and then manipulate the tokens or the dice. But yeah, it's slightly improved over the original system. It's still a bit fiddly, but visually I think I prefer it. But yeah, those are from Laserforge Miniatures. You can find online relatively easily. And if you like the look of these and the look of the system, then yeah, by all means go and check them out and get some if you think they'll work for you. But yeah, I just thought I'd address that, as people tend to ask where I got them from. And if you like them, like I say, grab a few. If you don't, use whatever system you like that makes gaming the most easy experience for you, as well as the most visually pleasing, because let's face it, we've all got our different tastes and how we want to approach things. So that's it for this video, and I hope to see you in the next one.